Caught my son doing this at the hotel and I couldn't stop my stepson. Must watch. Emma thought it was just a quiet weekend. A tournament. A room to share. But at 3 a.m., she saw Caleb. And she didn't leave. She watched. Then crossed the line. One moment of weakness, and everything changed. I never thought I'd be the kind of woman to admit something like this, not to anyone. Let alone out loud. But here I am. And before you judge me, before you think you know what kind of person I am, just hear me out. My name's Emma. I'm 39, divorced, no kids of my own. But I helped raise my ex-husband's son, Caleb, from the time he was 12. We weren't close back then. We were never meant to be close. I was just Dad's new wife, and he was the quiet kid who kept to himself. Buried in headphones and late-night video games. And that was fine. That was easy. We divorced a year ago. Caleb stayed with his dad. I moved 2 hours away. Started over. Clean slate. I didn't expect to see him again. Not really. Life moves on. People drift. But then came this bowling tournament. Silly, I know, but it meant something to me. A small escape from the dull gray loop my life had become. Just one weekend. Just one hotel room. Just me and Caleb, by circumstance. Not by choice. I thought it would be harmless. It wasn't. It was 3 a.m. when everything changed. And what I saw that night, what I did next, still keeps me up in the dark. Staring at the ceiling, asking myself why I didn't stop. Before that weekend, my life was fine. Not good, not terrible, just fine in that numb, gray kind of way. I worked night shifts at a local hospital, 12 hours on, 12 hours off, 5 nights a week, the kind of job that drains you so slowly, you don't even notice yourself fading. I'd come home, peel off my scrubs, shower in silence, and fall asleep alone, wake up, do it all again, no texts, no calls, no one waiting for me, and honestly, I'd made peace with that. Loneliness becomes easier when you stop expecting more. Bowling was the only thing that felt like mine. I joined a women's league a year ago. It started as a distraction, something to do on my off nights, but somehow it stuck. I wasn't amazing, but I was good enough. Good enough to qualify for a weekend tournament out of town. I was weirdly excited, like teenage level excited. I'd packed my lucky shoes, my ball, even bought new socks for the trip. Silly things, but it felt like a spark again. A flicker of who I used to be before the silence took over. I didn't know yet that silence was about to take a much darker shape. Caleb wasn't supposed to come with me. His dad, my ex-husband, was supposed to take him for the weekend. But, of course, something came up. A work trip, or a wedding, or some excuse I didn't bother asking more about. I didn't have the energy to fight him on it. I hesitated. Caleb was 20 now, technically an adult, but still living at home. Still in college, still figuring things out. He was polite, reserved, rarely spoke unless spoken to. Not cold, just quiet, and we'd never been particularly close. Not even when I was still married to his father. But he was free that weekend, and I had a reservation with 2 beds. I figured, why not? We'd barely see each other anyway. What I didn't expect was how much he'd changed. His voice was deeper, but softer somehow. His eyes held more weight. He moved differently too, less like a boy. More like a man learning how to carry himself in a world that rarely cared. The first night, we barely talked. Just a few awkward laughs during check-in. A short conversation about room service. But something in the way he looked at me when I handed him the keycard, it lingered. Not flirtation, not exactly. But something. Recognition, maybe, familiarity, or curiosity, I couldn't name it, but it sat in my chest long after we turned off the lights. And I remember thinking, quietly, to myself, how strange it was to feel noticed again, even if just for a second, even if it meant nothing. The hotel wasn't fancy, just a roadside place with beige carpets, stiff sheets, and a microwave that buzzed too loud. But to me, it felt like a little escape. I hadn't stayed in a hotel in over 2 years. Not since the divorce. Something about it, the stale air, The shared silence, the unfamiliar walls, felt freeing. We checked in Friday night. The tournament started early Saturday morning, so I kept things simple. Takeout, a quick shower, TV on low. Caleb stayed on his bed, scrolling through his phone, earbuds in. He barely said a word. I turned off the lamp on my side of the room, lay back under the covers, and let myself drift into that half-sleep where your body rests but your mind wanders. Sometime around midnight, I woke to the sound of Caleb tossing in his bed, just rustling sheets, a muffled sigh, nothing alarming. I rolled over and went back to sleep. The next morning, he offered to walk with me to the alley. It surprised me. He didn't have to, but he did. We got breakfast together in the hotel dining area. Waffles, watery coffee, and quiet conversation. He smiled more than I remembered. Not in a forced way, just soft, present, and when he talked about his classes, his eyes lit up. I hadn't seen that in him before. I should have known something had shifted then. I felt it, a kind of ease between us that hadn't existed before. Like the weight we both carried, his grief, my loneliness, had loosened. Just a little. But I didn't question it. Not yet. I was too busy pretending this weekend would be simple, harmless, just two people in a room with separate beds and nothing to hide. Turns out, you can share a room and still be completely exposed. It was late, past 2:30 a.m. I couldn't sleep. My nerves were buzzing from the day. I'd bowled decently, but not great. The pressure got to me, and I replayed every frame in my head like it mattered more than it did. The room was quiet, except for the low hum of the air conditioner and the soft flicker of the TV across from my bed. Caleb had fallen asleep hours earlier, or so I thought. His back was to me, blanket pulled high over his shoulders. I turned on my side, trying to find that one position that would trick my brain into resting. Then I heard it, subtle, the shift of sheets, a sharp inhale. My heart caught. I froze. I didn't mean to look. I really didn't, but I did. Caleb's blanket moved, rhythmically. His breathing shallow, his hand. God. I shut my eyes, embarrassed for him, for me, but I didn't say anything. Didn't cough, didn't roll over, I just stayed still. And I felt it, this heat rising in my chest. This pulse low in my stomach. Not desire, not yet, more like awareness. That sharp, aching reminder that I had a body, that I was a woman, not just a caregiver or an invisible ex-wife. I should have said something, turned, slept, anything. But I watched, just for a moment, then another, and another. I told myself it wasn't wrong if I didn't act, if I just let it pass. But it didn't pass, it deepened, thickened, like the air between us was changing, heavy with something unspoken. And when he stopped moving and went still, completely still, I realized he knew I was awake. He knew. And neither of us said a word. I don't know how long we stayed frozen like that, me pretending to sleep. Him pretending not to know. But the silence between us wasn't silence anymore. It was charge, dense. Every breath I took felt like it echoed. I turned my head slightly, just enough to see him. Caleb was lying still, eyes open now, staring at the ceiling. His chest rose and fell slowly, but his hands were no longer moving. I whispered his name, I don't know why, maybe to break the tension, maybe to ground myself, maybe to give him a chance to stop whatever this was becoming. He looked over, met my gaze, no shame, no panic, just calm, and something else, something dangerous in its softness. I couldn't sleep, he said, barely audible. Me neither, I replied, though my heart was pounding loud enough to drown out reason. I should have rolled over, closed my eyes, put a wall back up. But instead, I sat up. Do you need anything? I asked. My voice was shaky, but the words came out anyway. He didn't speak, just nodded, slow and sure. I crossed the room, barefoot on carpet, unsure if I was dreaming or losing my mind. The glow of the TV cast everything in silver blue, his face, his shoulders, the edge of the sheets pulled to his waist. I sat beside him, careful not to touch. My hands trembled. "I can help," I murmured, my voice barely a breath. He didn't stop me. I didn't stop myself. There was no rush, no aggression, just a quiet unraveling, like two people stepping into a current they didn't realize they were standing in. Skin against skin, eyes open, hearts breaking and racing at the same time. And somewhere deep inside, beneath the guilt and the heat and the impossible wrongness of it all, I felt alive. That terrified me more than anything. I woke before the sun. The room was dim, lit only by the soft gray light pushing through the curtains. For a moment, I forgot where I was. Forgot what I'd done. Then I turned my head and saw him. Caleb was still asleep, or maybe just pretending, his back to me, his breathing steady, the same boy I'd helped raise, the same man I'd touched like a stranger. My chest ached, not from regret, exactly, from weight. From the crushing realization that there was no going back. I slipped out of bed without a word, careful not to make a sound. My feet found the bathroom tiles. Cold, unforgiving, I stared at myself in the mirror. Hair tangled, skin flushed, eyes too wide. I looked different. Not older, not younger. Just exposed. I washed my face, brushed my teeth, took longer than I needed to. Hoping, somehow, the routine would rinse away what I still felt pulsing under my skin. When I came out, he was sitting up in bed. "Hey," he said softly, like we'd just returned from a long trip. "Morning," I replied, that's all, just one word. We didn't talk about it, didn't look each other in the eye for more than a second. He pulled on a hoodie. I grabbed my shoes. We moved like strangers who knew too much. But every step I took, I felt his gaze. And worse, I felt myself want to turn back. Just for a second. Just to feel that heat again. I didn't. But the wanting never left. We didn't speak about it that day. We went through the motions, breakfast, the tournament, small talk with other bowlers like nothing had happened. Like I hadn't crossed a line I swore I never would. But I felt it in every breath. The distance between us had shifted. Not wider, closer, uncomfortably close. When I bowled, I kept missing my marks. My focus was shot. I couldn't stop thinking about his skin, his breath, the way he hadn't flinched, the way he looked at me like I was something more than a leftover woman drifting through her own life. That night, we got dinner at a little diner near the hotel. I tried to make it normal. Talked about the food, the scores, the weather. Caleb mostly listened. He had this quiet way of looking at me that made my words stumble. Not hungry, not angry, just watching, waiting. Back at the hotel, I stood near the window while he undressed behind me. I could see his reflection faintly in the glass. My breath caught. I should have turned around. I didn't. I told myself, one mistake. You already made it, don't make it worse. But my body didn't listen. I wanted to crawl back into bed. Not to relive it, but to feel something again. Something that had nothing to do with duty or loneliness or the woman I was before. I hated myself for that. I still do. But there's this part of me, buried deep and ugly, that whispered. You're still alive, you still want. And that voice was louder than guilt. Louder than shame. Louder than reason. That night, we didn't touch. But the space between our beds felt thinner. And the space inside me, between right and wrong, was nearly gone. We drove home in silence. Caleb watched the road. I watched him, not in the way I had that night, but with questions stacked behind my ribs. Was he angry? Regretful? Relieved? I didn't ask. When we reached my apartment, I offered to make coffee. He declined, said he needed to catch up on schoolwork. His voice was calm, even, but not cold, not like he was running. Just putting distance back where it belonged. And I tried to believe that was enough. But things started to shift. Subtle, At first, my ex-husband, Caleb's father, called more than usual. Asked weird questions. Did you two stay in the same room? Everything go smoothly? You sleep okay? He never asked about my bowling. Then there was Olivia, my old friend who still worked part-time at the front desk of that hotel. She messaged me out of nowhere. Hey, just checking in, haven't seen you in ages. You doing okay? We hadn't spoken in over a year. My stomach twisted. I started retracing everything. The room, the angles, the TV across from the bed. The blinking red light I thought was just part of the smoke detector. Paranoia? Maybe. But something told me I wasn't imagining it. One night, I woke up sweating. I checked every corner of my bedroom, my closet, even the mirror, as if the guilt had bled into the walls. As if someone had captured that moment, and was waiting. Waiting to use it. I stopped responding to Caleb's texts. Not because I hated him, but because I didn't trust the quiet anymore. Something was coming, I could feel it. And in that silence, I realized the worst part wasn't what we did. It was not knowing who else already knew. It's been 3 weeks. I haven't seen Caleb since that morning. We haven't spoken, not really, just a couple of dry texts. Hope you're doing okay. Made it home safe, thanks again. Polite, distant, safe. But nothing feels safe anymore. I keep going through the motions, work, sleep, repeat, but everything feels suspended. Like my life's holding its breath, waiting for something to break. I don't know if it'll be a call, a knock at the door, a whisper that spreads in places I can't control. Or maybe it'll just stay quiet forever. Maybe the silence will be the only punishment I get. I haven't told anyone. Who would I even tell? It wasn't just about desire, or loneliness, or making a terrible choice in a moment of weakness. It was all of it. The silence, the aching, the need to be seen again, touched, not as a mother, not as a caretaker, just as a woman. And maybe that's the worst part. Not the act, but that tiny part of me that doesn't want to take it back. So here I am, telling strangers, people who can't see my face, people who'll judge me, or maybe understand me, in ways those closest never could. I'm not asking for forgiveness. But I am asking. What would you have done? If you were me? Would you have looked away? Would you have stopped it? Or would you have reached for the one thing that made you feel alive again?